Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Black British Parent Podcast. And today we have an amazing, fantastic guest, Katie Wilson-Downie.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi, how you doing? How you been?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Please introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell them about yourself.
Yes, so I'm Katie Wilson-Downie. People say that I'm a serial networker. I'm a qualified social worker with a master's, may I add. But I currently manage 5-bedroom children's home in South London. That's what I do 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. I also have a non-for-profit organisation, Mandala Community Services. We've had that for a couple of years now. And my current project under that organisation is the Windrush Compensation Scheme, where I support people to apply for Windrush compensation, check their eligibility, and do appeals and so forth. And then I do other little things on the side, like acting and stuff like that, but it's kind of less frequent because of all the other stuff I do. So yeah.
Busy. Yes. Okay. So we normally start off with kind of an icebreaker, which is a simple question. What's your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie is The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
With Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. And that's because when I was growing up, in the 90s, there wasn't very many brown-skinned women on TV or black women on TV. And Whitney Houston, well, I would say that we're a similar tone. I think she's a bit darker than me, but she's, light-skinned. And, they made her look that way on TV. And, I just identified with her. So I loved all of her singing and all of the glamour and that in the movie, her outfits and stuff. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's not very often we get like a vulnerable black woman as a leading character in a movie. So, yeah, that was a great movie, phenomenal film. And obviously Whitney Houston's just a fantastic singer. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that. I wanted to talk more about the kind of work that you do in terms of the Windrush compensation scheme. Please, if you can give us a little bit more information for those of us who don't understand it or know what it's really about,
So the Windrush Compensation Scheme, it's a compensation scheme given by the UK Home Office as an apology for the Windrush scandal, which occurred between 1948 and 1973. There's a clause for people who arrived before 1988 as well. But obviously the intergenerational trauma affects those of us that may have been born here from parents who arrived in the Windrush era, like myself, or, people who have grandparents that also come over in that area, or other, in that era, or other close family members. So you can claim compensation if you or your family arrived between 1948 and 1973 or 1988. You may also be able to claim for family members that are no longer alive as well. But you have to it's quite strict, the process. If you're applying for family members that are no longer alive, you need to have specific documentation to prove that you're related to them, and to prove that they arrived in that time as well.
Thank you. You were saying about the clause 1998 as well. So what was that about?
It's 1988, sorry.
My bad.
Yeah, so the clauses, so the wording on the applications is if you arrived between 1948 and the 1st of January 1973, you may be eligible for the scheme, or if you were settled before 1988. So settled refers to like your immigration status. So if you had a settled status like right of abode or indefinite leave to remain at those before 1988, then you may also be eligible for Windrush compensation. But it depends. So that's just kind of the first basic criteria. There is additional criteria which states that you have to provide evidence. And if you have arrived in those years or were settled before 88, you must be able to evidence that you've suffered due to the scandal, which is quite ridiculous considering it was like 50 years ago. 1988 was 36 years ago, but still, it was quite a long time ago. Most people don't keep evidence and documents for that long. So a lot of people are worried about being able to get evidence or understanding what evidence is required, but that's what I can support them with. Okay. There's actually a lot of evidence out there, and there's ways that we can get it. So I want to come back to that point, but I think just as we're here talking about that specific area, it's interesting as you say that, because perhaps a lot of us, our families, people in our community, are living with the evidence and don't realize that our experiences that we're just used to it. It's just every day for us is actual evidence. Things like anxiety or depression or those kinds of things would be, but we wouldn't necessarily have them diagnosed, because as Black people, we just get on with it and live with it, right? Yeah. So, but the thing is though, although, it is true what you say, many of us, are kind of in denial about mental health issues, psychological issues, or how the things we've been through have really affected us. However, there's many ways that we can get evidence. There's many pieces of evidence, should I say, that we can access. Luckily, in the UK, we have the Data Protection Act, and we have GDPR, and with that, we're able to apply to official organisations using a data subject access request to request full evidence about us that organisation has. Okay. And that relates to DWP, so like benefits, housing benefits, housing services, educational facilities, health services and facilities, the police and prison records, probation service records. There's so many ways, counselling records, there's social services records, being in care, being adopted. There's so many ways that we can actually get records from this country through using the data subject access request or the freedom of information access request. There's records held by the National Archives. There's records held by registry offices. There's a lot of records out there that we can access. So although the Home Office are quite out of order making us provide this type of evidence, especially for people that have been here for 50 and 60, 70 years, there's actually a way that we can prove, army service records, employment records, HMRC, land registry records. There's so many ways that we can prove either what we've been offered, what we've been diagnosed with, what treatments or services we've received, or the fact that we can apply, for example, to a housing service and request evidence that we've applied for social housing maybe 50 years ago, and there was no outcome, or the outcome was that the application was closed for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? The people weren't given a house, so that proves that they struggled to get housing. You have to be really creative with it, but there's so many ways.
I'm so blown away. I'm really new to all of this, so I'm grateful for you being with us here to discuss this. Yeah. So, could you tell us about your journey and what inspired you to get involved with supporting the Windrush generation?
Yeah, so I've been an activist for over 10 years, community activist, an activist for children and young people, because that's where my passions lie. With the Windrush Compensation Scheme, I was actually at a Nation of Islam meeting one day on Hinton Road when the Nation had that building, and in the audience, somebody put their hand up to ask Minister Abdul Hakim a question, and because he takes questions at the end of his sessions, and actually they wanted to say something, so they said, "Oh, Minister, are you aware of the Windrush Compensation Scheme? It's been announced." This was in 2018. "It's been announced, but it won't be open for applications until next year in 2019. So he said he hadn't heard of it, but I usually take my notepad when I go to meetings to get information. So I written it down, and then I went home and I Googled it. I looked on the government website and stuff, and there was some writing on there. It was just a basic page to say there is a Windrush scheme. They're currently doing community consultations. if we're interested, we could sign up. I signed up to the consultations. So then I started getting like information through my door from the Home Office of how they may lay out the scheme and so forth. It wasn't that interactive, but they were just updating us really. But anyway, I knew about the Windrush scandal because my dad comes from that era, and also my grandmother come to England and my grandfather as well. Under the Windrush, and many of my grand aunts, my grand uncle, there's a lot of family members that come over during that period from Jamaica. So anyway, when I was reading it, and I was reading that the scheme would be for people who arrived between the dates that I've mentioned, I called my dad and I was like, because in my head I was calculating like, how old am I? How old are my eldest siblings? When were they born? And my dad's age, and I was thinking, maybe my dad was here first, because my elder siblings are born in 77 and 76, I think. So anyway, I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, there's this Windrush Compensation Scheme, are you interested? And he was like, oh, the government are not going to pay me nothing. He didn't believe in the scheme. He didn't believe in the government. He thought it was some form of scam, or that they're trying to get his documents so they can deport him and all this stuff.
Gosh, yes.
And I was thinking like, oh, he's overreacting. And then, because I've never had an immigration issue, I'm British born, my mum's British. So when I've looked into the scheme further, because they were like updating it now, some time had passed, application forms were being released. This is 2019 now. I'm like, Dad, look at this application. These questions fit you, because they've actually put my dad in a deportation centre before, twice.
Gosh.
Aiming to send
And
him.
would that have contributed to why he was afraid, like fearful that this might be a scam to get him deported?
Yeah, definitely.
Goodness.
Like, he's got no faith in the Home Office whatsoever.
Goodness, sorry to hear that about your dad.
Yeah, it's really bad. He actually come over when he was 17 years old, in 1972 or 73, and he joined the British Army when he was 17 and a half years old. So, like, you're supposed to be 18 before you go in the army. So he was in the army when he was still legally a child. And the reason why he went into the army is because when he come to England, he come on a student visa to visit his mum. He was a barrel child, so he hadn't seen his mum for over 10 years. She left him when he was about 6 years old, my grandma, on the false promise that if she comes here, leave your children behind, you'll have a better life, you'll have better quality housing.
Or send stuff for them.
You can send for them, and once you make enough money, we'll give you a good job, blah, blah, blah. When my grandma got here, it wasn't that easy. But anyway, in the end, she managed to get him over here on a student visa for 2 years. And when his student visa was about to expire, that's when they come to him and said to him, well, if you join the army, then we can extend your visa.
Are you kidding me?
That's what happened, yeah. And at the time, World War II had just finished in 1945, and the whole reason of why they invited people here from during the Windrush era is because in 1945 World War II ended. The country was mashed up because IRA bombed the nation, mashed up England, mashed up the infrastructure. So their army was at low numbers in England. They had a dying population. They needed to rebuild the country here. So they sent for all of the people in the colonies. For those that are not aware, British colonies are lands owned and invaded by the UK, so colonial lands, aka owned by the British Empire. So anyway, Jamaica was still a colony at the time and so were most of the Caribbean nations at the end of World War II in 1945. So because of that, because England needed people, they sent out invitations to the Caribbean and to the rest of the Commonwealth nations. So basically, the UK changed the term from colonial nations, from colonies, to the Commonwealth nations. That's all Commonwealth means. they don't really explain what it means or why these nations are Commonwealth nations, but that's what they are, ex-colonies. So basically, they sent for all these people in the colonies, aka Commonwealth nations. They literally sent for the boats to the Caribbean, but everybody else was just invited to come over by plane. So they specifically wanted people from the Caribbean to come here and build the infrastructure, build the healthcare service, build the workforce, and join their military.
And the transportation industry as well.
Exactly. Transportation, banking, everything, almost everything in this nation was rebuilt by those who arrived in the Windrush, and particularly those of Caribbean and
background.
African ethnicities. There are other people, there are many other nations within those 54 colonies, aka Commonwealth nations, that are not African or Caribbean. Like, for example, Canada, Australia, islands in there.
Gosh.
Yeah, but, certain colonies suffered in different ways and sometimes in worse ways. I'm not trying to compare trauma, because trauma is trauma, but still, So because they needed people in the army, that's what they basically said to my father when he was under 18, and he joined the British Army, and to this day he's still fighting for his military pension. Just on September the 11th, I was basically standing in court for him at a military tribunal with the Ministry of Defence for the country, trying to get my dad his pension, basically. He was in the army over 50 years ago. He had to do what soldiers do in the army, kill people, risk his life, and he still hasn't got his pension. They're trying to say, prove that your PTSD come from your time in the army.
Goodness me.
It's ridiculous. So, yeah.
That was the beginnings of you jumping into this Windrush Generation Compensation Scheme. Okay, thank you for that. So your experience with the Windrush community, what are some of the most common challenges you've come across while helping people kind of navigate this compensation process?
Well, I've had a lot of fight from the Home Office and previous Home Office ambassadors who, shamefully, some of them are elders from our community, that have been given the position of Windrush ambassador in the early stages of the Windrush Compensation Scheme. I don't think there's any Windrush ambassadors now, but they were naysayers, and obviously my name was growing in the community for giving out Windrush advice and support, and the Home Office didn't like it. Funnily enough, around that time, the Home Office and mainstream media were telling the public that black people are not interested in Windrush compensation. I, however, happened to have an event in Harlesden at the Roundwood Unity Centre near Church Road, and way over 2,000 people
Goodness,
come. Almost 3,000 people
yeah.
arrived. It was a roadblock event. We had elders trying to jump the fence, kick the door, saying, let me in, let me in. And that was at a crucial time when
elders trying to kick the door down. I can't imagine that, but I can. That's wild, God.
Trying to jump the fence and stuff, like, let me in, I've been waiting since 9 a.m. And I was like, oh my God. But anyway, I didn't expect for that many people to arrive, but my friend Cheryl Phoenix from the Black Child Agenda, she promoted it, and it went viral, basically. And the Home Office, they were spreading propaganda about my information, saying that it's incorrect, yet my information was based off their information on their Home Office website. And you know, at the same time, I was actually in discussions. Well, just before my event, I was a year before my event in November 2021. I actually approached the Home Office before I'd even done my project, my event, to ask them for funding to go out to the community to give out information. And they said to me, well, we've tried it before in Lewisham Town Hall and only a couple of people attended. What makes you think that your project will be successful? I said, the difference is you're the Home Office. You cause this damage. I'm from the community. I'm a known activist. I've got contacts in the community. I'm already known. it's like they were trying to talk me out of it, but I
Yeah.
never allowed them to, because I'm a very strong person.
And
I
thank
knew,
you for not allowing that to happen.
yeah, I had a lot of good support, like from Empress Anoa from Galaxy Radio. My elder, you know, had some firm support on the ground, so I have to give thanks, you know. But anyway, they were trying to talk me out of it. That didn't work, and then people started to say that my information was incorrect, and there was anonymous messages going around from a top lawyer that my information was incorrect. But they wouldn't necessarily say my name. They would just talk about the event on the 5th of November. So it's clear that my event rubbed their shoulders, rubbed their whatever it's called.
Are these
Do you know what I mean?
ambassadors that you're talking about?
I don't know who the anonymous message was from. I have my suspicions. I'm not going to say any names because I can't prove it. But at the same time, I let everybody know that it's quite ridiculous that elders from our community were allowing the same Home Office that caused us this trauma to manipulate them into talking against me. But all that done is gave me fuel to go harder. Whenever I get haters, whenever I get fight, I don't retaliate. You're not going to see me retaliating in person or online. Unless it's physical, I'm allowed to defend myself. But other than that, I won't retaliate publicly. I can't because of other things what I do. I'm not gonna put that in jeopardy. Do you know what I mean? So I just go harder. Instead of wasting my time on trying to fight them or trying to prove what the Home Office says or these other naysayers is incorrect, I just go harder and harder and harder. And that's what I done. I just expanded my project and become more successful at it. But when I applied to the Home Office for Windrush compensation, to Windrush funding, they strung me along. So they had a couple of Zoom meetings with me. They'd bring like 4 people in the room. I wasn't afraid because I know what I've got to say. I'm very confident and very competent. So I had no kind of issues with them bringing a bunch of people to the Zoom meetings. But they would say things to me like, well, you know, have a meeting with us Windrush experts. So in the meeting, I had to say to them, can you please explain to me what gives you the grounds to call yourself experts? Because I'm first generation born here. My dad was first generation that come over here. My father's been, you know, in deportation centres at risk of deportation. So is my elder brother as well. So is my grandmother. So what is it? I said, plus as well, I've researched this in depth and I'm also a Windrush victim due to intergenerational trauma. So you tell me what qualifies you to be 100%. An expert. Do you know what I mean? I said, with all due respect, I've known about Windrush all my life. You've probably only learnt about Windrush in the last 2 years since the scheme has been out. Yeah. So I had those so they didn't want to fund me anyway. And when I asked for a reason, they said that I'm anti-government. But
what?
That's just ridiculous. So anyway, I said
to them... Are you serious?
Yeah. But I said to them, all right, fine. At this time, I was in the Labour Party in Croydon as well, and I was a very active member. And, you know, I even got some of my friends that I know in high positions to confirm with the Home Office that I am who I say that I am, and I do what I say that I do. And they weren't having it. So for me, I just thought, well, they clearly feel threatened. So I just thought, cool. And that's when I started to strategize. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I just planned it out, mapped it out, and by God's grace, my project's been successful so far.
That's awesome. And that's the support of the ancestors as well.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck on the anti-government. Even if you were, what difference does that make? I don't understand. Do you get what I mean? Like it shouldn't change the fact that this is a process.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're supporting people with that, regardless whether you was or wasn't anti-government or not. I don't understand what significance that would be. Obviously, they're just trying to clutch at whatever they think they can.
Yeah.
Gosh. So understanding the process, for those who are unfamiliar, could you walk us through the compensation scheme and what it kind of entails?
Yeah, so there's 3 different application forms. There's no deadline. There's 3 different types of application forms. One for people who arrived in between 1945, that's arrived to the UK, that is. And remember, the UK is not just London, it's not just England, it's England, Scotland, Wales, and part of Ireland.
Part of Ireland? How come part?
Because there's Northern Ireland and then there's Ireland, isn't there? So
just want to clarify, but yeah.
Yeah. So there's 3 different types of application forms. one for deceased family members. And as I said earlier, you have to be able to prove that you're related to them and that you have the legal permission to make their claim. So if they had a will or a probate in this country, you must be able to provide evidence that you're named in it. If you're not named in it, they will pay you to apply for the probate to go into your name. So if it's in a sibling's name or another family member's name, there's a legal process called a probate, which you can apply for to get your name put into the will. However, that's likely to cause family disputes.
And what if they haven't got a will?
If they haven't got a will, then obviously you wouldn't need a probate, but you would still need to have their death certificate, prove that you're related to them, proof of your relationship, so like birth certificate or whatever. There's different ways that you can prove it anyway. Even if it's your grandma, for example, she's not going to be on your birth certificate, but she'll be on your mother's or father's, and they may be on yours.
So you're saying, sorry about the will, being able to get permission to be able to get, can you run back through that again? Sorry.
Yeah, but the thing is the scheme's very complex and it's not black and white. So it's dependent on everybody's case and it's almost impossible to give you every scenario. But for the deceased application, you must have the death certificate, proof of your relationship with the person that you're applying for. You must have the probate or the will. If you don't have that, then, or they don't have a will, then you need to speak to the Home Office about that. What else you need to do to provide, the evidence, yeah. You need their ID as well. You need a form of their ID. So like a passport, a letter. Of course, that doesn't have to be in date within the last 3 months because they may have died years ago or whatever. So you need that first and foremost. Then you need your own ID, so you'll need a photo ID and proof of your own address, as well to prove who you are
and the connection with that deceased person.
So that just to clarify, there's two lots of ID that you need. Their ID, including a photographic ID, proof of address for them. You will need proof that you're related to them. You will need their death certificate and a will and a probate if they have one.
A will, yeah.
If they don't, then you may not need one. But within that will or probate, you must have your name. And if you don't, they will pay for a probate process.
They will pay for it.
They will pay for it. But it's likely to cause family issues if you haven't sorted that within your family first.
Is that within siblings you're talking about, that level?
It just depends whoever the will or probate is. Because if it's it depends what family member it is. So that's for the deceased claim. Now, remember, not only do they have to arrive between 1945 and the 1st of January 1973, or if they've settled before the 31st of December 1988, right? Not only that, but you also have to be able to evidence that they've suffered due to the scandal. So arriving in those dates and having that ID and those documents that we've mentioned is only one part of the eligibility criteria. The other part is, did they suffer due to the scandal and can you evidence this? That's it. If the answer to all of that is yes, 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 then it's likely that you be eligible to make a claim. Being eligible to make a claim and then being awarded compensation are two different things. You might meet the criteria, but based upon how you write it and the evidence that you provide to match what you've written depends on the outcome. Depends on the outcome of your claim. So it's quite complex.
How long does something like that take?
There's no timeline. There's no timeline whatsoever because it depends on how much information you've provided, how much you've written. It's best to be as descriptive as possible. It's best to meet the criterias. Like if they offer you, like there's lots of different sections, right? There's about 5 different areas where they offer you compensation: housing, education, employment, healthcare, impact of life, immigration and deportation, and discretionary areas, right? Now, don't write about homelessness in the section for health unless it's caused a health issue or impacted on your health. It's very important that you write these things in the right sections and with enough description. Don't just say, yeah, I had depression. Right, yes, I had depression due to whichever situation caused you to be depressed. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then relate it to the Windrush scandal again. If it wasn't for the scandal, I wouldn't have been in this position and I wouldn't have depression. Do you see what I mean? So not only do you have to write about how it's affecting you now, how it affected you previously, what triggered that effect, was there an incident or an event or whatever, like being deported, put in a deportation centre, and then also highlighting under every statement that due to the Windrush scandal, this is why I have this issue. Just, it has to be absolutely clear. And I say that so there's no way that the person who's reading it, despite of their understanding of the Windrush scandal or England in that era, they will have an understanding of what you've written. So there's the deceased claim, that's just one of the claims. There's the primary claimant claim for people who arrived before that time but are alive. Those people can apply on their own behalf. If they're not well enough or not able to read and write, someone can apply on their behalf, but only with their permission. When they apply on the primary claimant form, if it's not the primary claimant themselves claiming and it's somebody else doing it for them, they must write as if they're that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have to write out their full timeline, and the form will only ask you, when did you realise you suffer? And some people who are not getting support will think when they arrived in England or when they first got put in a deportation centre. It's not, because if you were a barrel child and you got left at home in Jamaica first, that's when you first started to suffer the child abandonment and all of those issues that you suffered. If there was abuse there, you know, wondering when will you see your mum and dad again, or not even realising that the lady looking after you is your grandma, not your mother.
Yeah.
Some people didn't realise until their mother actually sent for them or father sent for them. So it's really acknowledging when you started suffering rather than just going on the questions that's on the form. That's not good enough. That's not when, like for my dad, he started to suffer when he was left alone. So there's a primary claimant form, and I say, don't have no shame. Write out everything that you've experienced and write it out as detailed and descriptive as possible so that the person that's reading your claim and assessing your claim and going to be awarding you compensation has a real sense of what it felt like to be you in your shoes back then and how it feels now, and bring it right up to the current day with all of the significant events relating to how you've suffered due to the Windrush scandal in all of those areas that I've mentioned: health, education, employment, immigration, deportation and so forth, housing and homelessness. Also, on top of that, there's the third application, which is for the close family member. So the close family member form is someone like myself who wasn't the Windrush victim directly, but we may be the close family member, which is the son, daughter, mother, father, brother, sister, or other close relative. Because, you know, like sometimes cousins may live together, or you may live with your aunt, and we may be very close. Do you know what I mean? And they've also allowed stepchildren now, as of last year. They've added stepchildren onto it. So as a close family member, grandchild as well. So you can apply for.
I was going to ask that actually, if grandchild too. Yeah.
You can apply due to the intergenerational trauma you've experienced from your grandparents or parents or both. Yeah, but remember, you have to be able to evidence it. So if you are applying as a close family member, you have to be able to evidence that you've, number one, suffered in your life, and number two, that sufferation has been a result of the Windrush scandal. Yeah, and the intergenerational trauma from your parent or close family member who was a primary claimant who did arrive in that time, and how what they've suffered has impacted you and caused you to suffer.
Hey family, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to stay up to date with all things Black British Parent, we've got the perfect way for you to do just that. Join our mailing list and be the first to know about new episodes, exciting news and upcoming events. It's super easy to sign up. Just head over to our website and into your email. Don't miss out on the latest from Black British Parent. Join our community today. Now, back to the show.
You must be able to map it out like that for them to award you compensation.
Would so adult children of parents who were born here, but their grandparents came from the Caribbean, would they be able to apply?
They
Do you see what I
would.
mean?
They would be able to apply, but they should apply as the close family member of the person who
that
arrived.
came over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can't be the close family member of another close family member.
I get
so
you.
if you and I had the same parents, they both suffered, but they were born in England, but our grandma and gran was born in Jamaica or St. Lucia, for example. I wouldn't be able to claim off my mum, or you wouldn't be able to claim off our mum. We could only claim off of grandma, but we can still say, well, as a result of what my mum went through her being parented by her parents or being left alone, she had issues of abandonment. This caused her not to show emotions to me. My mum's never told me that she loves me, and, you know, this has affected me now. Blah, 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 blah. So you can say what you've been through due to your parent, but your claim relates to your grandparent that arrived in that time. Yeah.
Okay, I get you. Thank you very much for clearing that up. That is so profound and so detailed. Gosh.
Yeah.
You really know your stuff. You really have experienced it. No, seriously, because again, like I said, this is all very new to me. You hear about this Windrush Compensation Scheme and you don't get to fully actualize unless, of course, you speak to someone like Katie to really understand what it is going on. I mean, we've seen each other around, had passing comments and conversations here, but never really as full blown as this, and it is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot, to be honest. The Home Office, basically, I think they're absolutely taking the pee by making their application form for our elders 44 pages long. So the primary claimant application form is it 42 pages long?
Gosh.
And up until this April of this year, we couldn't fill it in digitally. Now you can download it and complete it online and tick the boxes.
So you have to do it handwritten.
Not only did you have to write it by hand, but you had to print it. A lot of people don't have a printer at home.
Yeah.
So to go and print a 42-page document and the guidance...
It's costly for a lot of people.
Do you know what I mean?
Even to go to the library and do it is quite costly.
And in the library, it's probably about £3, £3.50. Some of these little corner shops, their teeth, they will be... One elder told me he paid £15 for the form to be printed. £15.
Some libraries charge a lot though for printing too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think you answered some of this in terms of like eligibility.
Yeah.
Let me slow down that word. What kind of misconceptions have you come across with people? What meets the what people need to qualify for a compensation?
I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions that I find quite annoying is that it's only for Caribbean people. It's not. The Windrush Compensation Scheme and the Windrush scandal does not only relate to Caribbean people, yes, particularly to Caribbean people and Caribbean nations that were colonies under the British Empire. However, there's over 50 nations, India, Sri Lanka, Somalia, Gambia, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana. There's so many. Canada, Australia, Ireland. There's so many nations that qualify as Commonwealth nations under the Windrush Compensation Scheme. So it's not only for Jamaicans, it's not only for Caribbeans, it's for many countries. There's over 54 nations on there. I do display the nations on my platform, but there's and so do the government website as well. If you go onto my platform or the government website, you'll see how many nations there is. There's many African nations on there, and as I said, non-black nations on there as well.
Cool, thank you for that. How has the Windrush scandal affected individuals and families in ways that aren't immediately obvious?
I don't think there's emphasis. I think there needs to be more emphasis on the psychosocial aspect of it. For example, intergenerational trauma, attachment disorder for those children and for the parents who left their children, made a conscious decision to leave their children at home, being manipulated by the British government and the red coats or red jackets, who at that time would be passing on the message and promoting this, what looked like an ideal situation for people that were living in third world nations to come over to the mother country where the roads were paved with gold, they would say. And, living in a country of poverty, there's still a lot of people's dream is to live in England or live in America, even now in a lot of Caribbean islands. So if we go back to 1945, when they first started to have this scandal, done to us. There was many people that would have died and have, suffered extremely by coming to England. What they thought they would be coming to a life where, of course, they'd have to work hard, but it'd be much more luxurious. And it isn't. Not the weather, not the food, not the climate, not the hostility, not the services that they get. It's totally different. So, the attachment disorder that people have experienced and still experiencing, which is lifelong, which can be lifelong. And what's so wicked is, in 1945, there were psychological experiments they were doing on animals at the time for attachment, on mice and monkeys. So they knew what the attachment was like if you separate children from their mothers. They also knew about the attachment disorder caused to our ancestors that were victims of the transatlantic slave trade, and the victims of the transatlantic slave trade were the direct parents of those of the Windrush scandal. So it's like double trauma that people have gone through, and it's a lot of trauma that people are still experiencing. Now mainstream scientists, I think it was at the end of last year or the year before, they've now confirmed or finally admitted that trauma can be passed down through our genes. So even if we haven't met relatives, or even if it was a long time ago, we can experience trauma, and that's not always obvious. I think what also isn't obvious is the knife crime epidemic with serious youth violence that we have now on our streets today is also a direct result of the Windrush scandal as well. And people think, well, how? Well, actually, when our parents come over here, they were very cultured. It was a very close-knit community. There was a lot of marriage, children, families living together and staying together. And as that's changed over the years, as assimilation was forced upon us, as we were encouraged to wash away with our cultural practices and family practices, as feminism come in, and that was used, as a tool against the black family unit to destroy the family units. And, people were told, you leave your husband out of the house, otherwise we're going to remove the children and so forth. And then allowing our women to be dependent on social security, which is now universal credit benefits. All of these agendas that have been forced upon us as to destroy the black family unit and to try and destroy our populations, has also, the Windrush scandal has been a tool for that. And it's driven by white supremacy, and it's been forced upon our communities. And those are all of the reasons as to why we have knife crime today. The children don't feel close to their cultures. Also the family unit experience is not as there as much. The father figure in the households is not as there as much. And it's not just down to black people's behaviour or characters. It's actually due to everything that we've experienced and been experiencing and still 100%. Experiencing at this time.
And some of the domestic violence in our families and our communities is a direct result of the African Holocaust and all these kinds of things too. So it's something I've always spoken on myself wherever possible. And I definitely
so abuse, alcoholism, substance misuse, the crack epidemic, all of these things has been passed. Gambling, exactly.
Okay. So what kind of barriers do applicants typically face when trying to access the compensation, and how can these barriers be addressed?
Well, a lot of the barriers that people tell me about when they come to me for support is the Windrush Compensation Scheme staff on the telephones telling them that they're not eligible, when I've already confirmed it with the head of the Windrush Scheme that they are not allowed to do that.
Really?
On the telephones, they're not paid, trained or instructed to assess people over the phone. They're not allowed to. I've had that confirmed in writing by Nigel, who's the head of the Home Office, and for some reason there was a recording of that conversation that got put out on YouTube. I'm not sure how it got put out there. However, it's evidence that people who answer the phones that work within the Home Office are not able to give that advice on the phone.
There was a recording of this conversation and it got put out there and you don't...
So what happened is, on the 5th of November, when we had that massive event, right, the Home Office were trying to contact Cheryl Phoenix to ask to come to the event. She never saw that email until after the event. The Home Office lied and said we didn't let them come to our event, but they never asked me. They have my contact details, but they probably knew not to ask me after they turned me down for funding the year before. Anyway, so from that, the Home Office wanted to meet with us. I refused first of all, and I kind of had a FU attitude because I offered them to help me in the beginning and they refused to. Anyway, my friend encouraged me to, my colleague Cheryl encouraged me to attend the meeting, so I took some time off work, attended the meeting, and we had a discussion, and I asked that question directly because I'm honestly tired of the amount of people that come up to me to say the Home Office have told them on the phone that they're not eligible. So I warned the Home Office that the staff are telling people that, and if they continue, then I'm going to record calls. I'm going to make calls to the home, dummy calls, and record them, and I'm going to look into it legally and use the recordings against them. Anyway,
Michael went on gangster. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that discussion. There's evidence of that discussion online somewhere on YouTube, which I am happy about, because if those conversations weren't recorded, right, we'd never be able to prove this. The Home Office is so corrupt, and as a British-born person who has an English mother, I never realised how corrupt the Home Office were until now.
Gosh. In
terms of immigration and illegitimate and oppressive processes applied to people without reason, you know, and it's not okay. I'm totally against this kind of notion that people are illegal. I don't believe anyone's illegal. However, people of the Windrush scandal, particularly who were entered this country as British due to being British subjects,
and who were invited here.
They were invited here by the British Empire and British government. They come from British colonies, so everybody at that time was a British subject of the colonies in the UK, and they entered the UK as such, and then all of a sudden they were told they were no longer British. That's what happened to them.
That's always confusing with that whole legal talk, because it's like we're in the Caribbean because of you guys, essentially. So do you get what I mean?
Exactly. So the Home Office now confirmed that people are not illegal who come over in that period.
They've confirmed that.
Brilliant. And that's what the compensation's for.
Yeah.
So they're apologising for all of these illegitimate deportations. The time that my dad spent in deportation, he got quite good compensation figure for people that have been paid out. But another barrier is, even when they finally accept your evidence and your information, they'll offer you 10 grand for something that you should be getting £600,000 for. There's a limit, right? So every application, it's £10,000 per category. So 10 grand per the immigration and deportation category, and £10,000 per the impact of life category, where housing, education, health and all of that would have been. So the minimum that you can get for a successful application is 10 grand if you qualify for one of those areas. If you qualify for both of those areas on one application, the minimum you can get is £20,000. However, they've been giving lots of people 10 and 20, 30, 40,000 pounds offers, which is ridiculous. They have a maximum, which is £100,000, unless you are able to meet the criteria of their discretionary categories. But people who have been awarded compensation for the, I don't know whether you've heard about the blood scandal, where people's blood got infected by HIV because of the hospitals, or the post office scandal, their claims start at £500,000 and £600,000. Our maximum is £100,000. Do you see the issue? So that's the issue as well. It's like and then on top of that, the Home Office awarded this white-owned organisation that doesn't have a clue about Windrush era, is from an area that doesn't have a high population of black people or Windrush victims. The Home Office gave them £1 million to carry out the work that I'm doing, but nobody wants to go to them because, number one, they don't trust them, and number two, they've been telling people things like, oh, you've got too much evidence. How can you say that? That's not up for us as advisors to say
They've
that.
saying you got too much evidence.
That's what they've said to some of my clients. So, and they give them a negative attitude. So, like, say you'll come all positive, like, oh, hi, this is my ex. And they'll be like, oh, I'm not sure that'll qualify. Oh, I'm not sure you've got enough evidence. So the majority of people that have been there, well, actually, every person that has been there said to me that they didn't find the We Are Digital that helpful, and my support's much more detailed. I'm not saying that to promote myself, I'm just being genuinely honest. So that's another barrier that we face, whereas community organisations who don't appear anti-government may get up to £25,000. Yeah, this all-white company that's not from our community, that doesn't know about Windrush really until recently, £1 million. So...
Select what?
Yeah, they've got £1 million, and community grassroots organisations can get up to 25k. So not 25k promise, up to 25k as support to deliver support for people to claim the compensation.
Compared to that is wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is crazy. So, and non-black organisations are getting up to $1 million, did you say?
Well, it's one organisation called We Are Digital that was awarded £1 million. And the Home Office, I've got this information and Freedom of Information Act request to them. Like, how did this organisation get funded? Someone responded to me saying it was the tender. So I said, who else got invited for the tender? Why was this tender not sent out to the community groups? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, and then all of a sudden, oh, it wasn't a tender, we chose them. Well, why did you choose them? Do you know what I mean? So it's just ridiculous, but yeah.
Can you share some examples of the support service you provide, from criteria checks to appeal?
Yes.
Two appeals.
Two appeals, yes. So there's 3 different services that I actually provide. One of the services, my main service, it's a weekly service, right? I deliver them weekly across 2 venues. So the venues, it's every 2 weeks here and every 2 weeks here, alternating, right? So one week I'll do it on a Thursday in Thornton Heath, the Caribbean and African Community Family Centre. Something like that it's called. CAC4, owned by Carlton Young. He's a senior Labour MP. Or councillor, sorry. Carlton Young, he's from our community. He owns that centre, and he allows me to do my Windrush compensation. Well, we do them together from his centre on a Thursday evening, 7 till 9 p.m. That's in Thornton Heath. I do that after work. And then also on a Wednesday evening in West Croydon, there's another community centre which I'm a part of for another project, but I also run my Windrush Compensation Scheme sessions from there on a Wednesday evening, alternate to this Thursday session. That's from 7 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. In those sessions, what I do is the same thing what I do, same format in both of the venues. I'll have a little desk like this. I'll have 2 chairs there, sometimes 3, depending on who's coming. And then I'll have a little section over that side where there's like hot drinks. I provide hot drinks, water, biscuits, patties, just little snacks and stuff, crisps and that people can munch whilst they're waiting and talking amongst themselves. I'll probably have one volunteer or one member of my organisation there just to keep them entertained, really, just chatting to them. And then what I do is people will come and I will check where they're at. So they could come to check their eligibility. I'll go through that with them. It's always best if they bring their documents like passports or their parents' documents if they're applying for their parents. And then I will guide them through the eligibility process. If they seem to be eligible and meet the main criteria, I'll show them the different types of forms, confirm with them which form they need, right? Or if they want to do it online, I'll show them the online way as well. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of start to write a timeline with them from when they first suffered, or their family members if that's who they're applying for. And I'll do the timeline. It may take 1 or 2 sessions. And then once we've got the timeline and we've identified the form, we'll start putting the information from the timeline onto the form, basically, which can take quite a while. So most people see me for about 6 sessions. And then during that time, I support them to write letters and emails to request evidence and all this. We photocopy documents as well for free. Free for them. I am funded to do it by Action Race Equality, so big up Action Race Equality, big up Patrick Vernon, once we've completed the form and we've got enough evidence, we're satisfied with the evidence, or we've made enough efforts and we can't get evidence, if that's the case, then I support them to send it off. I will pay for recorded delivery because it is free post, but the Home Office being the Home Office, they sometimes don't receive your applications. They've done it to me, but I'm like, wait there, I sent it on recorded delivery. Royal Mail says you've got it at 6:10 this morning.
Gosh.
And they're like, oh, and it took them about 2 months. I had to write a formal complaint to the Home Office, not just to the Windrush team, but to the Home Office for them to go and find my application.
You're really we found it. Difficult, isn't it?
Really making it difficult. And that's why I go hard to provide as much support and make it as smooth as or easy as possible for people to apply. So I'll pay for people's recorded delivery as well. Luckily there's a post office in Thornton Heath that's open till 11 p.m. So we can do recorded for until 11 p.m. So sometimes I'll take a couple of people after my sessions up to there to send it off, give them the receipt, they can track it, and that's it from there. I don't keep their tracking info. When the Home Office respond to them, they respond directly to them, and that way people don't have to have an issue with trust, because I'm not getting your mail. I don't control your claim, you control it yourself. You write it, I just sit with you and tell you what to write and how to write it, basically. So I make it as easy as possible, but also one of the other barriers to people applying for the scheme is people don't trust the Home Office or other people with their information, or they don't know if you're going to charge them. You know, say, oh no, it's free, and then in the end bring up a charge or 10%. I don't charge, I don't ask for a percentage, I don't ask for nothing. I get funding and I support people. So that's what I do for one of my projects. My other project is a national project, so I go around the country. So I've currently been to Huddersfield, Birmingham, Northampton, Darlington, Middlesbrough, Manchester, Leicester. I've been to all areas in London, most areas in London where we have high populations of our community. Of course, it's not only for the Caribbean community, but that's who I have main contacts with. But anybody is welcome to my sessions. And that's the other project that I do. I try and go to different cities, maybe once a month, once every 2 months. So that's what I do with the second part of my project. And the third part of my project, I have an online platform. It's www.corca.co.uk. So Corca spelled COCAA, and on there, it's the only black-owned social media platform in the UK. So you can type into your browser, or you can download the app in App World or Play Store, and type in Corca COCAA and download it, make a free profile, and once you do that, you need to go to groups. And then you will see the Windrush Compensation Scheme. It's the Windrush Comp Scheme group. People need to request it. The reason why I've put it so people can request, it's private, because people will write in the discussion forum about their personal information, and I wouldn't want everyone on the app to be able to see that, So it's a private group. I've got documents in there such as presentations on all 3 applications, written in layman's terms on what the application means, what they expect for you, what the eligibility criteria is, why the scheme is even here, and then how can you write about intergenerational trauma, attachment disorder, child abandonment, and so forth. It's got all of that information on there. I've also got information on there on how to apply for abroad, because I did forget to mention that you can apply from abroad.
I meant to ask you that at some point.
So if you're a child of a parent or grandparent who come to England but you remained in your home nation, or if you've been here but then you return to your home nation, you can still apply so long as you've suffered and so long as you can evidence that, whether it's your parent, grandparent, brother, sister, and so forth. So I have a particular presentation for people applying from abroad. I have an e-learning course on there, which is me delivering a presentation but some questions just to help people. And that's a video, the e-learning course, and that helps with people who are not great at reading and writing and better at listening. I just give a presentation on what it requires. I've got links in for all of the application forms, the government guidance, so that also on the Coco app. I must mention that I've got I also provide free advice on people applying for their first Jamaican passport, their dual passport, or their renewal passport. So I've got a group on the Coco app titled JA passport. If you're interested in getting your first dual passport, I've got mine, it's not that hard, or you want to renew your passport or even apply for your birth certificate from Jamaica. My dad's like, oh, I need to go to Jamaica to get my birth paper. I'm like, Dad, you don't. He's like, I do. I just ordered it online and it arrived. It took a little while to come, but it arrived. So I've provided advice on that as well, just for people who want to do that. And I've even got advice on there, like how to add your father to your birth certificate and stuff, because some of the people's issues are that, what if my dad's not on my birth certificate? Yeah. So I've got guidance on that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. You're just phenomenal, the work you're doing. It's just brilliant. And I didn't realise the extent of what this was, because again, the whole Windrush Compensation Scheme just seems so complex that you just don't even bother it. And I just thought whoever's smart enough will get involved when they should. And clearly you're smart enough. Not that I was judging if you was or wasn't. But anyway, what are there any success stories that you can think of and happy to share with us, or moments that have like reaffirmed your commitment to doing this work?
Well, the thing is I can't talk about people's personal cases, but what I can say is that I've had many successes. I've got family groups compensation. My dad was the first success. He got £76,000. £76,000, right? Well deserved, yes. And I got him his first tenancy at his flat and all of that, he's been here for over 50 years and didn't have anywhere to live. But through complaining and through linking the local council where he lives with the Windrush Vulnerable Persons team, I got them to communicate and they kind of sorted it out. Actually, there's another part of the scheme I haven't mentioned. People can get their British citizen or their immigration status reconfirmed by the Home Office through there's another part of the scheme which is called the Windrush Scheme, not Windrush Compensation Scheme, just Windrush Scheme, where you can get your citizenship reconfirmed or apply to become British, but that depends on when you come and all of that. It's a little bit complex, but that information is also on my presentations. It's also on the government website. If you're interested, go to the Cocoa app or go to the .gov website and type in Windrush Compensation or Windrush Scheme and you'll see the different criterias there. The success stories, I have got a lady compensation just for the fact that, and this is quite rare as well, so I'm really, really glad, because she should be awarded it, so should everybody who's experienced what she has, but that hasn't been happening because there's inconsistencies with how they award people. But I got an elder sister, it was only £10,000, but she was very grateful, and so was I, just for the fact that, and she went to We Are Digital, and We Are Digital told her that she doesn't have a case, right? I said to her, you do, and I sat there and I supported her to write the form, and she did, and it was just on the basis that when she come here in the early 1960s, she come on a British Jamaican passport. After some time, due to the British Nationality Act, because that's a legislation that underpins this wrongdoing, by the way, if anybody's interested, the British Nationality Act 1945, the British Nationality Act 1971, and the British Nationality Act 1983. That's a legislation that underpins this, and they misapplied it as to why they're compensating people. But they told her that she's no longer British and had to be naturalised, and they took 2 years to actually complete the process. So for 2 years she was unsure if she was going to be sent home, deported or whatever, and they gave her £10,000 for that, and they've just compensated her son £10,000 as well. Her son who was born here.
The pressure.
So and that's quite rare. Like most people who've been in a deportation centre or been detained, if you get the right person advising you, or you know how to write about the impact of that, and you're able to evidence it, you will definitely get compensation. There's tiers, and the tiers of awards, like if you've been detained, you'll get this much. If you've been through this, you'll get this much. There's tiers on the government website, even though they don't really follow them. So just on successes, not me, but a lobby group, which I am a part of, but it wasn't directly me, I'm not going to lie. They've been very successful in achieving progress for the Windrush Compensation Scheme, where they've proved in court that the Home Office failed to put in the Wendy Williams recommendations. Wendy Williams, I'll just quickly say, she done a investigation on the Home Office and written 10 recommendations. The Home Office failed to follow them, and the lobby group recently took the Home Office to court through judicial review, and the outcome of that hearing was that it was illegitimate for the Home Office not to follow Wendy's recommendations, because her recommendations were how to improve the scheme. So they've agreed to reset it. I think Yvette Cooper, she's the current Home Secretary now, and I think she's going to be resetting it. So
there should be a kind of time frame when that will be done by.
Not yet, no, unfortunately, because I think they've only just got over it.
Okay.
They've only just got over the surprise election as well. So there's a lot happening in the background. With that said, the lobby group meet in Parliament about once a month as well, which I'm part of, and we sit in there and we will kind of ask the leaders of those meetings questions. A brother called Roland and another brother called Garrick. They have I forgot the name of their organisation, Windrush Justice Clinic, something like that. They chair those meetings. With John MacDonald from the Labour Party, he gets us the rooms in the House of Commons, and we meet there to lobby, to ask questions that MPs will come in and listen to, and then take back to the House of Lords and ask on our behalf, hopefully. So we're trying to make progress. There's a lot happening. There's no deadline. I encourage everybody to apply if you fit into those criteria, what I said. Join the Cocoa app, join my Windrush Comp Scheme group on there, ask me questions on there, and feel free. Also in that group, I share my flyers and stuff as to where I'll be delivering my support and stuff. So if you want support in that, join that group and you'll find me on there.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So how can people and organisations help raise awareness about the Windrush Compensation Scheme and support affected individuals?
I think they can raise awareness by finding out what's going on, right? There's not just me who provides support. I think I might be one of the only ones or one of the only few who actually do form filling, but there's many different types of groups out there that do different types of support for Windrush victims. So find out what's happening in your local area for the Windrush Compensation Scheme support, who's doing what, try and get involved, try and promote it on social media, try and find out what's happening at the Windrush lobby meetings. Action Race Equality, look at their website. They've got a lot of stuff on their website that shows you what's happening and how to keep up to date, and just share it and get involved. And ask your own family members. Ask your own family members where they come from, when did they come, if they fit into those years. Show them the Windrush Compensation Scheme and try and explain what I've explained on this podcast to them and see if they fit.
Or let them watch the podcast episode, even better. But also, so what kind of advice would you give to someone who believes that they or their family may be eligible for compensation but are unsure of where to start?
First and foremost, I would say do look on the government website, but if you call them, don't allow them to tell you on the phones that you're not eligible. They are not allowed to do that. They're not trained or paid to do that. You can request an application form from them, or you can type onto it directly from online or from my group. You can also print it yourself as well. Secondly, I would say find a support service, whether it's my online platform, my in-person sessions, or one in your local area. Find someone from the community to give you the advice, and then start to understand if your family or yourself may qualify, and then what the next steps would be for you or for yourselves.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's been a joy having you here to share so much profound information, all the knowledge you have. So grateful for it. And please, just one more time, if you can give our listeners your contact details, which is on the Cocoa app, so they can find you.
Yeah, so it's www.coca.co.uk. So you can log into that with a browser. You can download the app in your App World or Play Store on your mobile devices or iPads. Once you join the Cocoa app, though, you create a profile for yourself, but then you have to go to groups. So if you're using a mobile app, at the bottom of the screen, there's like a little group, 2 people together. Press that and it will show you the groups, the Windrush Comp Scheme group. If you're using a desktop computer or an iPad, on the left hand side there's some tabs there. Click groups and you'll see Windrush Comp Scheme group. You have to request to join, and only when I've accepted you will you see the documents and the discussion forum. There's also a private message option on there as well, where you can send me evidence evidence of the letters that the Home Office have sent you, and I can type to you on there, and that's how I support my international applicants as
Awesome.
well.
Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
just one last thing, what's your message to Black British parent, or our followers at least, our listeners at least?
I would say to you all, stand firm in who you are, believe in who you are, don't let anybody dim your light, and when you get a fight against you, that is a sign to go harder at whatever you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and take care.